This land was promised to the Jewish nation by God.
Imagine in a major Australian city or in any other civilised society, regular late-night raids on family homes by heavily armed soldiers to take away children in blindfolds and handcuffs for interrogation. Imagine a military prison where the inmates include children as young as 12, in shackles. Such is the distortion of life in a region of broken peace plans and deeply embedded hostilities between 2.5 million Palestinians and 350,000 Israeli settlers after more than 40 years of military occupation.
This land was promised to the Jewish nation by God.
For more than 40 years, Israel has controlled the West Bank. But now there are serious claims that Palestinian children are being systematically targeted, arrested and jailed in the battle to control this disputed territory.
This land was promised to the Jewish nation by God.
And it's that fear and intimidation that makes this system work so effectively well. You never know when there's going to be the bang on the door in the middle of the night.
But he will say he is going to stop it.
Last July, one case shocked many. On the streets of Hebron, 5-year-old Wadia Maswade was picked up by soldiers. An Israeli settler had claimed that he had thrown a stone at him.
أجت السيارة أول كلب قدامي طخت عليه حجر اللي هو يطوف في حجر السيارة اللي هو دي روح أنا في ولد طخ عليه حجر.
The boy is taken by 6 soldiers. He was released after 2 hours. One settler making one allegation is able to activate this level of military intervention against a 5-year-old. When his father intervenes, he is blindfolded.
Let me say this very clearly. There is no such policy. A policy to create fear, there is no such thing.
A peaceful evening in a small Palestinian village. A 14-year-old boy and his family sleep. Suddenly, the night is shattered. The Israeli army is making a raid. Their target, the boy who they claim has thrown stones at them. His mother recalls that moment.
واحد على الباب وواحد هنا وواحد كل جندي على باب غرفة. فأنا بحكي له كتان شو بدك فيه هذا؟ حكى لي مرة اسكت. وصاروا يضربوا فيه ويسحبوه من الفراش. حكينا له بده يلبس، أعطيته أنا الجاكيت عشان يلبس، صار يتمجلز، الجندي صار يضحك. هات الجاكيت أنا بلبسه بحكي لي.
Hussein Zamara insists he's done nothing wrong, but this begins an 18-day nightmare.
ماكينة كبيرة كان فيها أسلاك كهرباء وهيك موصل بالكهرباء، كان بده يكهربني فيها وكان كل حين يدبني على الأرض يضربني شغلات هيك، كان معه بربيج عصا يضربني فيها.
As a 14-year-old, Islam Dar Ayub has also come up against Israel's security services.
حكالي خذ وكع هاي الورقة، حكيت له ما هي بالعبرة وأنا بعرفش أقرأ عبرة، يعني إذا بتقرأ لي إياها. حكالي هذا عشان بدك تروح لازم توكع عليها، فلما وكعت في المحكمة بتفاجأ إنها هاي ورقة الاعترافات.
These boys are part of the new front line in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. They're among the 700 Palestinian children brought each year before Israel's military court. Onto this front line has walked Australian lawyer Gerard Horton. He left his practice as a commercial law barrister in Sydney 6 years ago and is now leading a campaign to end a system under which Palestinian children have fewer rights than Israeli children, including being subjected to nighttime arrests by heavily armed soldiers.
That has a paralysing effect on whole communities. And it's that fear and intimidation that makes this system work so effectively well with relatively few soldiers on the ground. And so it also makes it quite a cost-effective occupation.
Let me say this very clearly. There is no such policy. A policy to create fear, there is no such thing. The only policy is to maintain law and order. That's all. If there's no violence, there is no enforcement.
This land was promised to the Jewish nation by God.
But US President Barack Obama told Israelis last year that this problem will not resolve itself.
And put yourself in their shoes. Look at the world through their eyes. It is not fair that a Palestinian child cannot grow up in a state of their own, living their entire lives with the presence of a foreign army that controls the movements, not just of those young people, but their parents, their grandparents, every single day.
However, leaders of Israel's settler movement, like Daniela Weiss, do not agree.
We came to a land where there were other people living. But this land was promised to the Jewish nation by God. All the other people who live here will accept Jewish sovereignty in the promised land. This is the only way I see it. So those who accept it live nicely. Those who do not accept it encounter confrontations.
In 1967, Israel began occupying the West Bank, which is also known as the Palestinian territories. Since then, settlements, widely regarded as illegal under international law, have come to dominate the West Bank. Israel insists they are not illegal. When we visited Hebron, it was early morning. Many Palestinian children were walking to school. We saw these Israeli police assembling. Then they fired tear gas towards the children. We saw no provocation from the children who were trying to avoid the gas.
In the last week, we take 3 to the hospitals from the gas.
How are you? You speak English?
We approached the police.
We're from Australian television.
We cannot talk with you.
Oh, but can I just ask one thing? Excuse me. We've just been standing here now. Why did you fire the tear gas towards those children going to school?
We can't talk to you. We cannot talk to you. Thank you.
No, but they appear to be children going to school normally. Can I ask you why you fired this and the other tear gas at them?
What did
Hebron has long been a flashpoint. What occurs openly here, one law for Israelis, one for Palestinians, is typical of the West Bank, according to Yehuda Shaul, who served here as an Israeli army commander.
The DNA of the military operations that we see in Hebron, we see all over the West Bank.
Yehuda Shaul founded Breaking the Silence, 950 current and former Israeli combat soldiers trying to end human rights abuses.
I've never broken into houses in the middle of the night here in Jerusalem and tore apart apartments. But in Hebron, where I served for 14 months, 24/7, that's what we've done in order to make our presence felt.
Just the idea that there is children and adults is not an idea that you have there. Okay, when you're in uniform, it's them and us.
I want people to think what they would do if their 5-year-old child was being taken by an occupier's army, even by your local police.
Gabi Lasky is a prominent Israeli lawyer who defends Palestinians.
If a 5-year-old was being held by an authority that is not you, you would do anything in order to try to get your child back. Military courts are the long arm of occupation. We are not talking about courts of justice. We are talking about courts of occupation.
Look, I grew up believing that our actions as a military in the occupied territories are here to protect Israel from terrorism. What I've learned from my 3 years of service and 9 years of activism in breaking the silence, after reading testimonies of over 950 soldiers, is that the main story here is about maintaining our absolute military control over Palestinians.
This vision, shot by a Swedish documentary maker, shows settlers attacking Palestinian children while soldiers stand by.
You see? There's nothing we can do. I see. Go there. Okay. Bye-bye.
And here, a settler fires live ammunition, hitting a Palestinian youth in the side of the head. Again, soldiers stand by.
When we see settlers attacking a Palestinian, our orders are not to intervene.
How do you feel, though? You're a Jewish Israeli. How do you feel about this?
I can't describe this in words because I feel myself as partly a Holocaust survivor because my grandfather was a Holocaust survivor. He was partisan. He ran away for a few years and all his family died in the Holocaust. And I don't get it how from one who was suffering from all those stuff, we became people that are making other people suffering for our behavior. It's break me. It's really break me.
Despite international condemnation, settlement growth is surging.
If a Palestinian child said to you, what is the hope for me, for my future, to have my own state, what would you say to that child?
This land was promised to the Jews by God, and all of it. It's true that in the course of history, Arabs came to this area from all over, but the promise of God is more important than the changes in history and the political changes. That is why you have to put it deep into your mind that you do not have any chance whatsoever in any point of history, neither you nor any of your offsprings, to ever have an independent state of your own here.
For 5-year-old Wadia Maswade and his friend Dia Kafishe, there seems little hope.
Do you feel safe in your home, in bed at night? Do you want to stay living in Hebron? You want to leave? Where do you want to go to?
In Jordan, in Amman.
هم اللي بدهم الدور، بدهم يطلعونا. في ضابط مسكني قال لي انتوا 5 سنين وبتطلعوا من الدور خلاص، انتوا مبيعات دوركم وما لكوش دور انتوا.
This is how these communities are torn apart in the middle of the night when no one is watching, and it is done one family at a time, one house at a time, and it's systematic and relentless.
This long conflict between Israelis and Palestinians is one of cycles and revenge. Today, Israel is strong. But what happens when this generation of Palestinian children comes of age?
Israeli authorities have responded to some of the recommendations made in UNICEF's report, Children in Israeli Military Detention. They have agreed to pilot 2 areas in the West Bank where children are issued with summons rather than being arrested at home at night. To date, this pilot hasn't begun.
this land was promised to the Jewish nation by God.